Welcome to the Despicable Maine Deep Dive.
Hello.
Today, we're diving into some pretty heavy ideas about the big pharma business model.
Right. Specifically this notion, which comes up in the sources, that profiting from suffering, maybe even population control, could be like baked right in.
Exactly. We're going to unpack concepts like targeted medication batches, something the sources call the payload concept in drugs.
The cycle of treatments, too.
Yes, and how plausible deniability might fit into all this. We've got some, let's say, interesting sarcastic analogies from the material as well to help illustrate the points.
Okay, so this payload idea, it's pretty central in the sources you mentioned. The claim is that some modern drugs might actually contain something extra.
Yeah, like a hidden component.
Exactly, something deliberately designed, they argue, to cause a different health problem later on.
So not a side effect we typically think about.
No, the sources are very clear on this. They say these aren't accidental side effects, they're intended effects. The goal, allegedly, is to make sure you need more treatment down the road. You become a continuing customer.
Okay, let's break that down. So the analogy they use, it's like buying one of those, fancy coffee makers.
Quad ones.
Right, the pod ones. And it only works with their super expensive pods, and you know those pods are designed to run out really fast, forcing you to keep buying more and more.
Okay, I see the parallel.
Except here, the pods, according to these sources, well, that's your health, your future well-being.
Wow. And this whole concept, then, feeds directly into driving dependency, right? Creating this endless cycle of treatment.
That's the argument.
Right.
That the industry, as these sources portray it, wants people on medication, basically for life.
Because from that viewpoint, there's just no money in actually curing people. Is that the idea?
That's precisely the logic presented.
Yeah.
So if this supposed payload causes a new issue, the typical response, according to the sources, isn't, oh, let's stop the first drug. No.
It's prescribe another drug.
Exactly. Prescribe another drug to deal with the new problem caused by the first drug.
So you end up with this, like, cocktail of drugs.
Yeah, an endless cycle, prescription after prescription. The analogy here is like taking your car to the mechanic for a simple fix.
Okay.
And while they're fixing it, they maybe, discreetly damage something else. So you have to come back next month and pay again.
Yeah. One problem supposedly fixed, another one created more money for them.
That's the picture painted. And it's presented not as some mistake, but as like fundamental to the business model.
So ongoing sickness, managing symptoms, that's where the real money is, according to this view, not in cures.
Right. And this payload idea is, well, kind of the key mechanism they propose for making that happen. It's just a much better business model from that perspective.
And they don't limit this to just pills, do they?
No, apparently not. The sources extend this to injections, even vaccines, suggesting they could also be designed to, foster more dependency later on.
So even things that seem free or beneficial, like the flu shot example they used?
Yeah, even that is viewed with suspicion in this material. The theory put forward is that maybe they contain, well, they use the term poisons or other harmful additives.
Designed to encourage more dependence down the line.
That's the suggestion.
Yeah.
It's like a casino giving you free drinks.
Okay.
But the drinks are secretly formulated to lower your inhibitions and make you gamble more recklessly, get you hooked.
Which brings us to another major point in the sources. This idea that the system profits from creating the problem and selling the solution.
Yeah, that's a really cynical take. The idea that illnesses might be, in some cases, deliberately triggered.
Through these payloads, maybe, or how things are distributed.
Right. And then the industry cashes in selling the treatments or the supposed cure. It creates this guaranteed profit loop.
The analogy for that one. It's like a company that, say, secretly pollutes the town's water supply.
Oh, wow.
And then turns around and sells expensive bottled water as the only safe option. They create the demand.
And what really stands out in the sources is this focus on plausible deniability. How do you do this without getting caught?
Exactly. They bring up the flu shot again here, suggesting it might have been an early scam, as they put it.
How so?
Well, the claim is that maybe some batches actually contained the flu virus to make people sick, while other batches were just placebos.
So you couldn't easily prove a direct link.
Yeah.
Creates confusion.
Precisely. It showed them, the sources imply, how to operate with that layer of deniability. Mix it up.
And this ties into the more recent and frankly disturbing claims about targeted distribution, right?
Yes. The sources express serious concern about the distribution of different COVID-19 vaccine batches.
What kind of concern?
The implication, and it's a strong one in the material, is that different batches, maybe with different effect profiles, were sent to different areas.
Different areas based on what?
Well, the suggestion is based on things like political leaning, that areas supporting certain figures might have, allegedly, received batches linked to more adverse effects.
Okay, that's a very serious allegation. The idea being they could target people they don't like, as the sources put it.
Right. Target specific groups, potentially harm them, and profit from any subsequent treatments needed. It's a very dark scenario they're painting.
And it gets even darker, doesn't it, when they start talking about the long game?
It does. Some of the more extreme viewpoints in the material talk about population reduction, population control.
The most radical idea being
Well,
that the ultimate goal is to, and this is a direct quote they use, profit the maximum from getting rid of humans.
yes. It sounds almost absurdly villainous, but that's the claim presented.
And again, plausible deniability is key here. You couldn't just eliminate huge numbers overnight.
No, the strategy proposed would have to be much more subtle, like targeting specific towns, maybe communities already vulnerable.
Like near a chemical plant, as they suggest.
Yeah, or based on other demographics, using specific payloads designed to cause, say, higher rates of cancer or other long-term illnesses in that specific group.
And the really chilling part of that claim
Is that the cure for whatever they intentionally caused might already be developed and waiting.
creating a completely closed loop. Cause the disease, sell the cure you already had. Guaranteed market.
It's a deeply unsettling thought process laid out in these sources. They also really hammer the issue of funding and transparency in medical studies.
Right. Who pays for the research? That's the big question they raise.
Yeah, because the source of the money can, heavily influence what gets studied and what findings get published. It's always about asking, what are they not telling us?
And the motive, they suggest, often lies with whoever footed the bill for the study.
It's like reading a glowing study about, I don't know, a new soda.
And then you find out the soda company funded the whole thing. Suddenly seems less objective.
Yeah. Exactly. And they also point to the revolving door issue, between regulators like the FDA and the pharmaceutical companies themselves.
Ah, yes. The idea that people approving drugs might later go work for the companies making those drugs, or vice versa.
Which creates a huge potential conflict of interest, doesn't it? The sources argue this means profit often gets prioritized over public safety.
And lobbying efforts just add another layer, influencing decisions behind the scenes.
So just to kind of pull it all together, based on these sources, we're looking at a perspective where big pharma is potentially designing drugs with these payloads to create future illness.
Right, to lock in customers for life.
Leading to this cycle of treating drug-induced problems with more drugs. It suggests a business model that actually thrives on sickness, not wellness.
And then the more extreme, disturbing claims about targeting specific groups, plausible deniability, even population control motives.
Yeah, and underpinning it all are these concerns about who funds the research and the potential conflicts of interest between regulators and the industry. It's quite a picture.
Well, thanks for tuning into the Despicable Maine Deep Dive.
Yeah, definitely a lot to think about there.
Today, we've really dug into some deeply concerning viewpoints on the pharmaceutical industry, looking at potential hidden motives and business practices, drawn straight from the sources provided.
The picture painted, according to this material, it suggests a system where, ongoing illness and dependency might actually be the profitable goal, not cures.
Raising serious questions about targeting, plausible deniability, and even population control theories. Remember, the United States has been hijacked, so soon living in the United States will be theft of your life.